Okay, so welcome back. This is Kathleen and Jeanne, and we're going to talk now about the gerrymandering of the state of Illinois. Hot off the press, Wall Street Journal today, and I know you're getting this podcast a couple days late, so this is Friday, June 4th, 2021. The incredible Illinois gerrymander. It says Illinois Democrats hold a state house supermajority, every statewide office, and state Supreme Court majority. That sounds like a monopoly on power. It is. But with voters starting to revolt against the state's fiscal woes and political corruption, Democrats are now working to further entrench their power. Late last week, Democrats jammed through new state legislative maps that combine 14 Republicans in the Illinois House into 7 districts. That means 7 GOP incumbents are guaranteed to lose in party primaries. Republicans will also lose their incumbent advantage in 7 districts. No Democrats were combined in the same Illinois House districts. So this is the way they do it right now. You know, and I'm going off of that article and just free talking now. I mean, we brought this back to you in a Facebook Live not that long ago. Mm-hmm. But here's the deal. There's 73 Democrats in the House. None of them were mapped together. They literally drew the lines around people's homes. Yet in the first iteration, 20 out of 45 Republicans were drawn together. And now you're down to 14 out of 45 Republicans drawn together.
It is such an unfair process. Mm-hmm. And in that same article, it discusses how this process plays out, and if they don't sign, if it's challenged, and if legislators, there's a constitutional deadline. If they don't redraw the maps by June 30th, if it's not approved, then it goes to a tiebreaker. And if the commission deadlocks, the Illinois Supreme Court would submit a name of 1R, 1D, again, make it all a game. And then they draw one of those names and giving the winning person the ability to redraw the maps. It's still not a fair process. This is so typical of Illinois. It's just a silly twist on Illinois' winner-take-all model of governance. From start to finish, these maps need to be we need to change the way we do these legislative maps from start to finish. This winner takes all, spoils of war model that you get to distribute jobs and contracts to your friends if you win, rather than drawing maps in the favor and fairness to the people you represent, is everything that's wrong with Illinois.
Okay, so on the line with us today is somebody who sat through this on the House floor, heard all the arguments, made arguments herself, and we have Deanne Mazzochi, state rep out of the Elmhurst area. And Deanne, I've been told that your particular your particular city, Elmhurst, which is, I don't know, population 50,000 or so, has actually now 3 state reps representing it. Is that true?
Yes. So apparently, according to the Democrats, in the spirit of having districts that are compact and contiguous, it means that you should take a town, which is my hometown, and split it up as much as possible. So, this is, I suppose, not surprising. But when you look at the district maps, particularly in terms of what they've done in DuPage County and in the city, you see a whole host of areas where when you look at the maps, they simply don't make sense in the sense that neighborhoods are getting split up. For me personally, my precinct, which is, pretty uniform in nature, size, and character, magically, the few blocks around my house got drawn into a Democratic incumbent district, and the rest of my precinct got to stay with the rest of Elmhurst. So
they actually split a precinct. They split a precinct between state rep districts. A precinct,
right? Yeah. So a precinct, which is comprised of around 500 people. They took a few hundred. They took a few blocks within my precinct, threw that into into Deb Conroy's district, which is predominantly Villa Park, Bloomingdale, Glendale Heights, and decided that, sorry, we couldn't stay with the rest of Elmhurst anymore.
No, Deanne, this is intentional, right? This is intentional because they know that you're a very, very strong voice down there, and they're counting on Deb Conroy's, a nearly decade in the state legislature, and people that are familiar with her name, voting for her again, rather than voting for somebody like you, who is a complete reformer and is so articulate on the House floor, so able to make really important arguments and actually embarrass the Democrats on their really terrible policy that has driven Illinois to its worst in the nation status. And they're afraid of you, Deanne, which is why they literally carved out your house into Deb Conroy's district.
Right, and they weren't shy about it either. In fact, if you look at it's House Resolution 359. So if you go to ilga.gov and type in HR 359, go to page 55 where they talk about the proposed, Representative District 45, which they've carved out of the current 47. They expressly say this district was drawn for political purposes to assist with increasing the political advantage for neighboring districts.
Mm-hmm. They said that in the resolution.
In the covering resolution, exactly.
Yeah,
So
they're making no bones about it.
We
We won elections, and this is the spoils of war to them. This is exactly.
It's not about giving voters a fair voice or giving the most opportunity to have the best representation. It's about winning elections. It's all a game. Very cavalier with people's lives.
So, Deanne, take us a little bit further. What does this actually mean for Illinoisans in the end? How does this affect them? Because I feel like this redistricting issue is something that your average citizen, it just, kind of just flies over their head. They don't really understand the impact. They're doing it now this year. They'll never remember the impact of it for next year's election, which is what the Democrats are counting on. But why does this matter?
Well, I think first and foremost, it matters when it comes to the person at the top of the governmental list, right? J.B. Pritzker made an express, blatant, unequivocal promise that he would veto any map that was drawn by legislators for partisan purposes. Well, this was a map that was literally drawn by legislators, and in the resolution setting forth the rationale for the map boundaries, they say that this was being drawn for partisan advantage. So, number one, people need to reach out to Governor Pritzker and insist that he actually live up to the campaign promise. He also came in saying that he was going to be somebody who was going to do better for Illinois, that he was going to be on the side of the people in Illinois, that he wanted to think bigger, think better. And if he goes ahead and doesn't veto this map, it's just going to show that all of that was a lie, and this was just, nothing more than words being spouted for crass partisan advantage.
Oh my God.
So I think that is step number one. But step number two, this again was an area where one of the things that I found down in Springfield is you can never listen to what the Democrats say. You have to actually watch what they do.
Right.
And here, despite all of the promises that this was going to be a new day, this was going to lead to more transparency, they were going to have an open, honest process. They have created a situation where, again, they say this is expressly being done for partisan advantage. The map making, the map drawing process was not transparent. In fact, the sponsor of the map legislation couldn't even explain pretty much anything in terms of criteria. And Jeannie, you know this firsthand. You have the staffers whispering, and the legislators don't actually know what's in their legislation, but they do have a bunch of staff members standing around feeding them points into their ears. So that, of course, happened over and over again here. And while the Democrats have been saying, "Oh, look, we had all of these, hearings throughout the state." One of the things that I think was very interesting is that at those hearings throughout the state, organizations, that are certainly not, the types of organizations you would say are aligned with Republicans. I mean, you had everyone from the League of Women Voters, the Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Change Illinois, Black Roots Alliance, Children's Advocacy Alliance, Common Cause Illinois. There were so many different organizations that said that they were out there advocating for good government, that told the Democrats, you cannot use this data that you're using to draw the maps.
Deanne, this is where I think this is something I think makes people feel really like there's not a lot of hope, because the majority of Illinoisans want fair maps. And nationally, there's been a move in the past decade. 8 states have overhauled their redistricting procedures to lessen partisan manipulation. Not Illinois. I mean, Jeannie's been talking about this for probably about a decade now. And because they hold such tight power, because special interests and entrenched interests have, basically run the state, we can't get anything done. And so it's why we're losing people, I guess. But is there any hope that you see?
Well, I look at it this way. I am a happy warrior, and this is something that I think we all need to just step up to the plate and be willing to do whatever we can to, call it out, name it, shame it, claim it, and do what you can to try to certainly, I mean, here's the thing. Every single Democrat, who was present in that chamber voted for this. There was one Democrat who was excused. Every single one of them voted for it. So as a party, every single legislator said, this is the side that I stand on.
That's right. They did
but
not.
But then they'll just spend $1 million in your race alone on elections to lie about what they stand for, and people seem to fall for. I mean, I guess we have to do a better job of connecting the dots.
So, a couple things here. One, like you said before, there are a number of quote-unquote good government organizations, or they claim to be good government organizations, that weighed in about wanting a fair map. I mean, this has been a battle that's been going on for a decade now. Back in 2014, they tried to get a fair map resolution referendum on the ballot, and I specifically wrote about it in the Chicago Tribune op-ed, and here's what I wrote back then. This is in 2014, July of 2014. I said, last week in a brazen display of power, House Speaker Mike Madigan and his lawyer Mike Casper silenced the appeal of tens of thousands of Illinoisans of all political stripes who simply ask that voters have a say in the manner in which election maps in the state are drawn. Yet Madigan's majority put into place several constitutional amendments and advisory referendums that will appear on the November ballot. Reconcile the ease of getting a reliable majority of votes for a ballot question with the Speaker's court challenge against the Fair Map initiative signed by tens of thousands of citizens. Madigan and House Democrats felt it was more important to have voters weigh in on minimum wage law and birth control availability than fair election maps. Why? Because a fair map and term limits threatens their power. That is the bottom line. This is all about their power. We've known it from the beginning. They've blocked this before. We had literally 600,000 signatures put in on a petition to put this on as a referendum. Madigan's lawyer killed it. He himself killed it using the Supreme Court advantage. They've rewritten the Supreme Court maps as well. They've rewritten. This is what's interesting, Deanne. Please tell me what's going on in this case. They use the American Community Survey data to draw these maps for both the Supreme Court and the legislative districts. As far as I know, that is the map that Pritzker can and cannot either accept or veto, correct? But the congressional districts are not going to be rewritten until they actually use census data. How do they square that circle? And do you expect Governor Pritzker to sign these maps?
Right. Well, when it comes to Democrats in Springfield, I rarely expect logic. I just expect whatever is convenient for the day to ensure that they can remain in power. But I think that what you're seeing is exactly a whole host of problems. You'll remember, Jeannie, that a lot of people don't realize that our Illinois Supreme Court is structured so that there's 3 judges from Cook County and then 5 judges that come from other districts in the state. Well, Justice Kilbride, who was the justice who authored, and who voted to strike down fair maps, he was the deciding vote. He, of course, was kicked out of office because the voters were so angry with him for putting partisan politics ahead of the people of Illinois, which we just don't want to see in our court system. And that's another area where the Democrats have decided they're going to try to redraw the maps because they realize that their slip on the Illinois Supreme Court, which has also resisted a lot of good government reform efforts. They realized their hold on that was ready to slip. So for the first time in decades, they've decided to redraw the maps for the Supreme Court as well. So this is, I think that you're just seeing the lengths to which the Democrats will go to make sure they are retaining control and power. And this is one of those areas where, when this is not just an individual legislator, this is the partisan this is a partisan political party aims and goals as a whole. So when the governor promises he'll veto a fair map, and then if he doesn't, he doesn't. When every single Democratic legislator who's on the floor to vote lines up behind this is a party philosophy.
This right.
This is not something where you can just say, here's a particular candidate, and I like this candidate and not that candidate. I think finally in the state of Illinois, people need to say, we are going to punish this party for abusing their power. Because unless and until that happens at the ballot box, there's no disincentive for them to change. Because if they keep winning elections, they'll keep abusing the power.
Well, and they're drawing these maps to win elections. They're drawing it precinct by precinct, pulling in just enough Democrats to give them that type of majority. That's why they actually strengthened Deb Conroy's district against you for a Democrat victory. We are going to work our butts off, Deanne, to have you beat her, because we get a twofer. We get you back down there in the House, and we hope that you are pushed forward into leadership and able to actually take over the caucus, in my opinion. And we get rid of one of the worst Democrats that is down there, that does not represent the values, I believe, of the majority of the DuPage County voters that she is supposed to represent. She has just bamboozled them, and with her lies on her mailers repeatedly. We are going to work really, really hard to get you elected over Deb Conroy. I hope that that's what you intend to do, is to run against her. But thank you so much for coming on this segment. You've been truly informative, and we are going to have you back in about other important issues that got passed that we need to talk about and raise awareness about with our voters. So thanks a lot, Deanne, for joining us today.
Thanks, Deanne.
Thank you so much, Jeanne and Kathleen. Always a pleasure.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, and there's so much to talk about that topic. I mean, you can't make it up. We're going to actually put up on our website so that you guys have a link to it as well. We will show you the meme that I think really it tells you exactly what can happen when you have a fair computer-drawn map, and that is what Iowa looks like, with their very almost square-looking shaped districts, compact, contiguous, square, and what Illinois districts look like by comparison. The map tells you everything you need to know about how the Democrats are drawing these lines to their advantage. You literally have a state rep district that goes from the Chicago Loop down to Kankakee County. I mean, you cannot make it up.
It looks like a plate of
fair.
spaghetti.
It's Medusa's head.
Yep.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. So we'll be back with our next segment shortly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.